Hi, I'm Sean.
I'm Rhonda.
Did you know that conflict can create closeness?
Wow, how can that even be possible?
It's all in how we look at it. Conflict is really revealing information to you about something that's going on with your spouse.
Right. Any of the negative things that happen during a conflict are loaded with information.
That's a time that we need to ask questions. What's going on? Tell me more.
Why did you withdraw? Why did you get really upset with me?
Yeah, help me to understand better from your perspective how that felt to be you. So it's all in how you handle conflict.
Definitely, because all marriages have conflict. The difference is exactly what you said. How do we handle it? We can handle it well or we can handle it poorly.
We need to stop and think, what does this situation look like from my spouse's perspective?
Definitely. Impact should equal intent. If we don't ask questions, we know what we meant to say, but we really have no clue what our spouse actually heard us say.
What does it feel like for my spouse right now? What are they experiencing?
Right. So, one thing that conflict does for the marriage is it deepens our connection with each other.
Wow. So many times after we go through a successful resolution of a conflict, we feel closer to our spouse.
Because we're getting to know something about our spouse, and our spouse is actually making us aware of something about them.
That's right. And it's so much tighter after you find out that information and you draw closer to understand better from their perspective.
So the spouse may be saying, hey, this is something I need for our relationship to be deeper, to be more intimate. And they're actually revealing their heart and soul.
That's right.
And we want to be able to handle that delicately.
Yeah, and that's information that each spouse needs to treasure, that the other one revealed to them, that it's deep information.
Right. And so we actually don't have to hide our feelings. Conflict is a way, when used right, to make known what's going on inside, to be me in this relationship.
If you look back in Genesis 2, after God brought Eve to Adam, it said they were both naked and they were not ashamed. So many times we think about that only in the physical sense,
Right.
but they were totally revealed to each other emotionally,
Right.
spiritually.
They were emotionally naked. They were not just physically naked, so they were sharing their emotions. They weren't hiding anything.
That's right. And it's the same way spiritually in our relationship with God. We realize that He sees and knows everything about us.
Right. It's okay to reveal the things that, from your perspective, are hurting the relationship. That's a healthy thing, actually.
And if you can do that before something spirals into an intense explosion, that's better.
Right. And that's what we see going on a lot of times with couples. They're not able to share these things because if they did, the other spouse would get so defensive or would stonewall and withdraw or explode because they're taking what's being said as an attack or like, you're not happy with me. But really, we're just trying to reveal self.
That's right. Getting to a point that we can freely open up and talk about things that are challenging us in the relationship in a more casual way, and
Right.
not get to the point that we can only talk when we are ready to explode.
Right. We really shouldn't get into a discussion of an issue when we have a lot of emotion involved. We should let that pass and then we should talk about it.
Many times men find it very challenging to be able to hear something their wife presents if it's full of lots of emotion.
And a lot of intensity.
That's
So
right.
women, if we dial down the intensity, reduce the emotions like a business meeting, right? Where you're acting like a professional, we're more likely to be heard.
It's probably going to feel a little bit dull for a woman because I think the emotion just makes it more juicy.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit more tasty thing for her husband to hear and
Right.
experience what it felt to be her.
And this can be reversed, remember, in probably about 10% of the relationships. Sometimes we just have to be able to weed past the surface presentation to hear the heart of the message.
That's right. There's information behind every conflict that comes up. So look past all of the mask and the smoke
Yeah.
and mirrors that can be there to try to
Yeah.
disguise what's coming to you, and see the heart of what your spouse is really experiencing.
Right. Conflict can keep us from building walls because what happens when we can't resolve our issues is those walls are being built brick by brick.
Yeah, it's something that's hurting the relationship, so we need to be willing to talk about what is affecting the relationship.
Right. And so if there's a lot of walls between you and your spouse, conflict can help tear those walls down piece by piece. You have to go slowly, one small issue at a time, to be able to work through those things.
Think how you respond if somebody steps on your toes. You're going to back up. You're going to take a step or two back. You're going to
Right.
think, I've got to protect myself so I don't become hurt again.
Right. Because when we don't handle the conflict well, we're stepping on each other's emotional toes and we don't even know it. We need to be able to talk about those things so that we can interact in a positive way. But the more we're offended, the more we create a distance so that we can get away from what's hurting us. And we don't want to create pain in the relationship to push the spouse away.
Right. So, anytime that we find ourselves pulling away, we need to find out why. What inside of me
Right.
is closing down.
And so dealing with our issues keeps our perspectives positive. Because what you see happening when we don't talk about issues is we will be tempted to come up with a negative characterization about the spouse based on my now perceived interpretation of my assumption. Since I can't talk about it, I must assume.
Yeah.
And the enemy has a lot of room there.
Yeah, and we definitely went through that ourselves, making
Yeah.
assumptions about what I thought was going on because of how it felt to be me, instead of really understanding the heart of what was behind the information that was being presented.
Right. And both spouses are generally feeling like my spouse is seeing me as this horrible negative person, like I'm attacking all the time, and I'm not that way at all. And so we can avoid that if we can talk about our issues, because then we can find out, what did you really mean?
So if a person has been putting up walls in the relationship, how do they start taking those walls down?
Right. That's got to do with talking about the issues one small piece at a time.
It's exposure too. It's
It
being
is.
willing to trust that this person is not going to hurt me.
Right.
Their intent is not to harm me.
And then it keeps the perspective current and positive. Instead of allowing negativity to just build in the day-to-day relationships and then spill over into everyday life.
So many times we're challenged because we've got a backlog of issues that we haven't resolved maybe for years. And we're having trouble dealing with a current issue because we have no confidence that it's going to be resolved. It's going to be just like the past 100 that never were resolved.
Right. And if you're having trouble resolving issues, be able to talk about ask your spouse, what is it that I do that closes or escalates you, that makes it hard for you to hear me or for you to be able to share your deeper thoughts and feelings with me?
Yeah, that's a very good conversation to have with your spouse, to be open enough to be able to say, here's what's bothering me.
And that can only happen if we can lay down our own perspective and our own agenda to be able to seek out, what is my spouse's heart trying to say to me? Not, oh, I'm so upset with you because you're not hearing what I'm saying. That's a wrong perspective.
Right. And we need to make sure that we're conveying to our spouse that their perspective matters. That,
Right.
Really that it's okay for you to be different than me. God intended in the relationship that we have different perspectives.
Right. And when we're able to talk about these issues, when we're able to resolve conflict, we are communicating what is going on inside of you, what it means to be you in our relationship is important to me, and I want to know what that feels like.
Yeah.
I want you to have a great experience as my spouse.
Yeah, so many times we're wasting our time in our relationship trying to make our spouse another clone of us.
Yeah.
There doesn't need to be two of you.
Right.
You need to have the difference. He said
Yeah.
in the beginning he made them male and female. That's different.
So we have to be able to embrace something outside of ourselves. We have to be able to see, feel, hear, understand that which my spouse contributes to the relationship. So then together we can come up with a way to unite those things.
God intended there to be both the masculine and the feminine perspective blended together as one.
So can you see how conflict benefits the relationship?
It's a very valuable thing if you embrace it correctly.